Today we're going to talk a little bit about the Campcraft Beaver badge and the requirements towards it and how it can relate to other different badges that exist within the Beaver section. First off, I'd like to mention that a lot of this can be tied into things such as if you look at the third sort of point here, cook over a fire or a barbecue, there's actually a part of the Beaver's Cook activity badge which requires 3 dishes to be prepared and cooked. If you prepare 3 dishes, even just 3 different ways to cook eggs is quite an interesting one, then you could actually tick off both those badges in one go almost if you want to run the cook activity badge alongside the campcraft badge. Other than that, taking part in a small pioneering project, this could count towards a number of different parts of the Chief Scouts Bronze Award. If we are discussing things such as the My Skills Challenge Award, learning how to tie a knot would actually count as one of the new skills you can learn. A reef knot being one of the most useful knots out there. It's used for a whole bunch of different things, including tying slings for arms and things like that. It's very good to teach this from a young age to beavers. Additionally, if you make this pioneering project here a team-based activity inside the lodge, then you could obviously get people towards the Teamwork Challenge Award, which is one part of the Chief Scouts Bronze Award. Starting your own camp blanket, I'd highly advise doing this, and putting some emphasis on this, because as beavers go up to scouts, cubs and scouts and explorers, you may or may not know that the tradition in scouting is to take the badges off your previous uniform and put them onto your camp blanket, as well as obviously the badges you earn from going to different camps. Those are what's known as occasional badges, and you can only wear one on a uniform at any given time, and only for a certain duration. So after those 3 months, or whatever the case might be, where you've worn your badge related to a certain camp on your uniform, you then take it off and put it onto your camp blanket so you don't lose it, and it shows your history in scouting. And I myself actually have a camp blanket that was my grandfather's and then my father's. So there are 3 generations of badges on that camp blanket, and making sure to start that tradition if you can. It can go. It can be quite significant in terms of family history eventually. So I'd put some emphasis on this, even if they're just cubs. Things can get important as life goes on. And moving on to the bottom point here, we have visit a cub scout or group camp. Basically, this is part of the Beavers My Outdoor Challenge Awards. There's actually 3 or 4 different ways you can count towards a Chief Scouts Bronze Award within this Campcraft badge. Learning to tie knots like a reef knot also counts towards the My Outdoors Challenge Award. And in terms of the visiting a camp, if you make this part of a sleepover, then this point and helping to put up a tent, as well as collecting wood and building a fire, these are all different parts of the My Outdoors Challenge Awards. You can count off about half, I'd say, of the My Outdoors Challenge Award by running the Campcraft badge properly and doing this at a campsite rather than just at a scout hut. So that's the links to different badges that I can really identify for you. I'm sure there's some other ones out there as usual, especially in terms of things such as, for example, nights away would count for if you slept over at a group camp or a Cub Scout or a Scout camp. That would also count. If you are doing a fire and building a fire, if you talk a little bit about the dangers of fire and the safety you should incorporate when building a fire, that also counts towards a Beaver's Safety Activity badge. So there's a whole bunch of different badges you can earn towards just by running this Campcraft badge, and several different parts of the Chief Scouts Bronze Award. What I would advise is to perhaps collecting wood is an interesting one. Obviously keep some wood in reserve in case the beavers can't find any. In case it's been wet, wet wood doesn't burn as well as dry wood, clearly. And helping to build a fire, you can do this as Something as simple as having them put the wood on a sort of bonfire heap so you can burn it eventually, or something as individual as, okay, try and build your own small fire. Cook on a fire or a barbecue. Again, I would sort of lean towards cooking over a fire rather than a barbecue. Um, you can sort of combine the two a little bit. If you have sort of half oil drum, if you sort of take an oil drum and cut it in half, that's what a lot of scout groups use for their sort of fire containment. You put it on a stand, it lifts it off the ground a little bit. It's very good to sort of combine the making a fire inside that, and it sort of classes as a barbecue almost as well. You can do a lot with those. Learn how to tie a reef knot. Again, that counts to multiple different things, and is generally a very, very useful life skill, because your regular sort of overhand knot you use to tie shoes with isn't actually particularly strong, and neither is a Grammy knot where you just do the thing you do when people tie knots regularly without any scouting knowledge. Reef knots are much stronger when it comes to knots. The pioneering project, again, I would suggest something along the lines of using rope. Obviously, pioneering being rope work for the most part, although there are other parts of pioneering as well. And perhaps if you talk about square lashings, it's a little bit surplus to requirements here with just reef knots, but square lashings are very easy to learn. And with that, you can do stuff like A-frames and help you can actually make a makeshift tent with just some sticks, some rope, and a tarpaulin quite easily. That'd be very interesting indeed. Starting your own camp blanket, we talked about this. It's worth doing this because parents a lot of the time can get confused about what goes on uniforms and not. The distinction between what is and isn't an occasional badge can confuse them. So obviously, any badges you get from a camp or other event, they shouldn't go on uniform. They should go in a camp blanket because they are occasional badges. You can only wear one occasional badge at any given point. So having a camp blanket to put all those on so you don't lose them is quite important. Visit a Cub Scout or group camp. This is just essential scouting stuff. You want to start introducing your beavers into proper quote unquote scouting. That would be great as well. That's about all the advice I have for you, I think, in terms of the Campcraft badge. Um, Certainly, this is a very essential scout skill, something that will stand them in good stead for the rest of their time in scouting. Hopefully, that's been useful. Thanks.